I'm Peter Brissett, your host. If you do have questions, please hit the questions box in the GoToMeeting interface, and we'll try to answer those during the meeting here today. I'd like to introduce the Executive Vice President of the Colorado Assisted Living Association, Mr. Corky Kyle, to kick things off.
Well, Happy New Year, everybody. We're getting ready to start our program here, and we've got quite a bit to go ahead and cover and give you an update of the year in review, not only to tell you the accomplishments that we had in 2017, but we'll also be coming up to those accomplishments that we'll have in 2018. As you can see from the view on your computer screen there for the webinar, we're going to be talking about our educational accomplishments, regulatory involvement, legislative involvement, and the very important dates that we've got coming up in 2018. So let's go ahead and get started. Our educational accomplishments that we had this year, we had two very, very successful conferences. Each one of those conferences set a new attendance record for our educational offerings to our members and non-members. Very excited about that. It says a lot about the association meeting the educational needs of the members. The legislative involvement that we had last year, we went through the legislature. We emerged unscathed. We had no adverse legislation affecting assisted living industry in Colorado, which was very, very good. We covered in excess of 40 different bills that in some way affected the industry. So your legislative committee and your government affairs chairman, Clark Grepp, did a supreme job in representing the industry during that time. Right now, I want to go ahead and turn it over to our president, Bill Bowles, and let him talk about the regulatory involvement that we had last year. Bill, it's all yours.
Thanks, Corky. Hi, everyone. We also have online here Nicole Chabon. She's a CALA board member, and she's been involved with all of the town hall meetings as well, and had been a part of the regulatory review. Let me just start by saying that it's been a very volatile year, and there is a lot of change that's going to be exacted on our industry. And what I'd like to do is just kind of give you a summary of what I've experienced at these health department town hall meetings. Nicole, please chime in if you have something additional to add from your perspective. But the audience at these meetings, and I've been at every one of them, and predominantly, I would say up to 90 to 95% of that audience has been comprised by small owners and operators, whether that is an individual or group that owns one 8-bed community or 10 8-bed communities. They're all considered the small providers and folks that CALA is really representing in the field. I've only seen on a couple of occasions a corporate monolith like a Brookdale or Sunrise attend these meetings, and they're not very engaged. And I think that's telling, because it gives an indication that these regulations are going to have a far greater reach into the operations and finances of the small providers. And while it would be a tremendous opportunity to have all of these individuals to join up with CALA, and I'll go into that a little bit later in our approach to recruit some of these smaller providers. But one of the things that has occurred to me is that as the state is going through with their slides and their town hall meetings, they're focusing on very specific areas of the regulation. And unfortunately, these meetings are only 2 hours long, so they are just barely touching the surface of a lot of the more considerable changes. And what I found is that the audience is almost attending with the perspective of learning about the regs. Very few individuals in the audience have read and gone through those regs such that they would have the opportunity to make comments, because the state is taking comments on those regs. And I told Randy Kirkendall that it's refreshing to me to see folks go into those town hall meetings with marked up copies of their regs with dog ears and Post-it notes and things like that, because it indicates to me that they're actually reading the regulations, and they're not satisfied with allowing those regulations to be imposed on them, but they are taking steps to go through the regs themselves. And so predominantly what they've been discussing at these town hall meetings is changes in the training of the administrators. They've been going through, and again, very high level, and asking for comments. And the meeting goes so fast that folks don't have an opportunity to read those regs on the fly. And so they've been discussing points in the new regulations, but they've also been discussing, in the second part of their presentation has to do with the fee increases and why those fees need to be increased. And it was the same presentation that they did at the CALA fall conference. And so it's not much of a surprise, but I think that, again, there hasn't been a whole lot of comment. And I think that from our standpoint, we need to be able to write a position paper with some of these other items. Nicole, what's your impression of these town hall meetings?
I would agree with your assessment completely.
Okay.
I mean, I think a lot of people there's a good majority of people coming in planning to be educated on what the new regulations are about instead of coming prepared. But yet we do see some that are prepared, and I do agree that it is a majority of small communities only that we're seeing at these things.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And there have been some really good comments made from folks that feel very passionate about what we're discussing. So moving forward, what we have planned to do is that we are going to essentially broadcast the January 5th meeting in Broomfield, and we'll be sending out the web address and the instructions of on how to log into those. But what I would like to encourage everybody on the phone is to spread the word to either attend this meeting in Broomfield or log on to the website. And unfortunately, you're not going to be able to make comments or ask questions during that webcast. But I can't stress this strong enough that the new regulations are accessible on the health department website. And if you don't have a copy of those, we can publish that website for you and send it out. But I would like to encourage you as strongly as possible to review those regulations in detail, especially with regard to all of those items that the increased responsibilities on the administrator. The definitions have changed quite a bit. The memory care portion of it has been changed quite a bit. And again, they're so detailed that it's very difficult for me to go in and give a point-by-point or a blow-by-blow guide of what to review. But suffice it to say that from a staffing standpoint, as far as your administrator is concerned, those responsibilities are going to increase. And so in addition to training of new administrators, and I would like to go through a couple of things that I plan on submitting to the CALA board as far as the CALA position statement on these new regs. And again, one of the main points is, of course, the responsibility of the administrator. And one of the things that has occurred to me is that there, in the new regulations, there are some things from a life safety standpoint that I am going to recommend that they vet through the life safety group to make sure that these regulations are in concert with the life safety regulations, because in some areas there's a perception that of contradicting statements or ambiguous statements. Other definitions, such as guardians, that's a little bit ambiguous in the reg as well. There is still some outstanding language in the regulations having to do with CPR, and it's my impression that the regulation is essentially requiring that assisted living communities conduct or to perform CPR. And there's a little bit of controversy from a policy standpoint in some communities, following the line of thought that CPR does more harm than good based on what literature says in terms of the effectiveness of CPR. One of the other things that I am going to include in my position proposal is that the administrator training right now I feel is prohibitive for small communities, because right now they're requiring a 5-year experience for new administrators that don't have the education requirements. So in my mind, that's definitely going to have to be renovated. And from an organization standpoint, a large facility might just, again, not really have a concern about it, but small communities will have their pool of administrators diminished just extensively. So that's something we need to pay attention to and comment on. And again, because the new regs are so detailed, it's very difficult for me to go on a line-by-line basis. So,
Bill,
Nicole,
Bill, you may want to just share with people that we are in the comment stage for all the rules and regs, and that if anybody, as they go through there, has questions, that they go ahead and write those up and send those in to them, so that they can gather those all up and used in the ultimate, whatever the final draft is going to go ahead and be done. And you might also want to touch on the timeline that people have to get these things in, as well as what the timeline is going to be for the future implementation next year when these will go into effect.
Okay. Thank you, Corky. And I can even go one better. I think that in terms of efficiency, I can offer two things. That Corky is correct that the review period is still in process right now, and that's evidenced by the fact they're still having their town hall meetings and they are soliciting comments, written comments and such. But I would like to put the CALA board out there as a resource, that if you do have questions or comments, that we might be able to help you put those comments into context a little bit, just based on the work that we've been doing in attendance at these town hall meetings, and so that we can actually help you clarify the concerns and questions you have, so that they can get full attention of the state. In addition, with the position paper that the CALA board is going to submit, we are definitely open and encouraging you to include your comments and concerns on that position paper if they resonate with the board. And so far, so far the comments have been very, very good. Even things in this reg that other people have seen that I haven't seen, and I've been a part of the development from the very beginning. So there's a lot there. So essentially, when it's all said and done, the state wants to have every single comment into them by January 10th. And their intent is to take all of the feedback that they've received, all of the comments and that have been sent in, mailed in, emailed, in addition to the comments that have been made at the town hall meetings. They are going to incorporate that into the new regulation with the intent to have a final draft presented back to the ALR committee on January 19th. The state has scheduled an all-day meeting on January 19th to present these new regulations, the final draft that has inclusion of the comments that have been made. And really, it's going to be a time of debate because I'm not quite sure the process that they have followed of what to incorporate from from a change standpoint. They may take aggregate comments that are relatively the same and then implement that change in the reg. I'm not clear exactly how they're going to do that. Once that we have some type of consensus after the January 19th meeting, they are going to be scheduling the final draft of the regulation to be submitted to the Board of Health. And they're going to make the appointment in February. That meeting will then take place in April. And the April meeting before the Board of Health, and I believe Randy said it's going to be held at the Health Department, that is a public meeting. However, it is not an open forum. They're not going to allow any comments just because that what has been submitted to the board is the final draft. Once that the Board of Health approved that document, the regulation will go into full effect in July. Now, it's the intent of the health department to have a graduated implementation of the new reg. However, they are going to be conducting training after the appointment or after the meeting in April is made. So there are a lot of opportunities to comment on this, and there are also going to be training that's conducted by the state. One of the things that I might add is that we're working with Randy Kirkendall to conduct the very first training on the new regulations before or after immediately following our spring conference. So for our members, they will have the first opportunity to participate in a training program that is going to be folded out to the rest of the industry. And this is not something that we have experienced at our conferences where Elaine and Dee just simply stand up, and it's not going to be seminar based. It's going to be the exact training that they're going to be doing throughout the state.
And that's right, Phil. And that's going to be kicked off, and that'll be part of our conference, our spring conference, that very first program for everyone to learn about the new regs. So we're going to be, we will be the first one.
So, Nicole, do you have any comments about what I just said or any insight?
No, not at all. Just to really emphasize the fact that it's vital that we get interaction and suggestions regarding the CALA statement to the health department regarding our concerns regarding the new regulations. It's important that we get everyone's involvement and collaboration with that so we can come up with a good, statement for the CALA memberships regarding the new regs. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I had to run up some stairs.
That's all right.
but I mean, other than that, I think that's it. Other than really being involved in that last Broomfield town hall meeting and voicing your concerns is really vital, because they are listening. They're very much listening and taking what we have to say into consideration. So we just want to make sure everyone is heard and represented appropriately in this process. That's all I have really to add.
Good.
Bill, were you gonna talk about the rates still?
Yeah, that's exactly. I was just going to mention something that Randy had said during the last town hall meeting. I think it was in Pueblo or Colorado Springs. Randy had indicated that. Well, let me back up. But at one of the final ALR committee meetings, there was an interesting consensus among providers, not only in the committee but also in with those who were participating as just general attendees, that the industry was asking for a 1-year survey cycle, and to me that was very interesting, because what came after that, the comments, was that it wasn't the impression of the health department that with a 1-year survey cycle that improved compliance. And so what they've done, and it is based in statute, in the enabling legislation, it does indicate that assisted living communities be surveyed once a year in the state of Colorado. So balancing the resources necessary to be able to survey every single assisted living community, which they're pressing, and I believe it probably be over 700 here very soon, that it's an unreasonable expectation in terms of resource allocation from the health department to be able to conduct those annual surveys. So something that Randy said, which kind of surprised me, is that they're instead looking at a 3-year survey window. So that's one of the things, and I don't know to what effect that's going to have on the rate increases. Nicole, what's your impression of the discussion of the rates? Because again, Randy was saying that the ramp up proposal for relicensure and change of ownership and initial licensure costs were still in the proposal stage. So to me, it was kind of ambiguous.
And you're right, it very much was. I think Randy had said maybe it was at the Pueblo town hall meeting, but again, don't quote me on that, because it could have been Colorado Springs. But he did say they knew rates were going up, most certainly. They weren't now exactly quite sure how high, but that they did feel that getting everyone surveyed on a yearly basis was something that was not going to be plausible. So yeah, I heard the same thing you did for certain.
Okay. Well, so we've pretty much outlined kind of the approach to the regulations, and I want to just put out there, in terms of the work that we did in 2017, it was a tremendously collaborative effort of working with Nicole and some of the just initial proposals that were just thrown out there by the state. Because I think when we went into these ALR meetings, they included a lot of things in their regulation that they threw at the committee to see if it would stick. And one of the things was the limited nursing approach, which was just tremendously prohibitive to smaller providers. And we, in looking at it and analyzing it in depth, we were able to participate and rally the industry to have a positive effect on the change that was made to eliminate the lion's share of that limited nursing approach. And I'm just extremely proud of the work that we were able to do to stand up to represent our members, to essentially get that thrown out, because again, it would have changed the face of assisted living in the state of Colorado, especially among Medicaid providers and smaller providers. So that is something that I just can't say enough about the work that we did with that. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about with these new regulations and the changing environment of assisted living. We have conducted two meetings to determine how that we want to approach reorganizing the Colorado Assisted Living Association to be more effective and also to have the opportunity to include more of our members and recruit our non-members into the organization. And one of the things that that we heard that was consistent through both of those meetings was the need to begin working or have a stronger focus on our grassroots efforts in terms of working with our members to work with other members and non-members on a one-on-one basis. And that has to do with promoting and marketing the things that CALA has done and the things that we are going to be doing in advertising the member benefits to non-members and being able to create that dialogue at that grassroots level so that folks can explain why that folks need to be a member of the Colorado Assisted Living Association by virtue, an example of the effect that we've had on the changes in these new regulations. And you know, I don't care for the word watchdog, but essentially we have been the gatekeepers for these small communities, and to get higher numbers involved, it's going to be a grassroots effort because we are a grassroots organization. So having said that, I want everybody on the phone, we are going to put together, typically the way that we have developed our educational conferences, we've had a few people in the room discussing different topics and different speakers, and we put the program together. And based on the feedback that we had during our consensus summit meetings, for lack of a better term, is that we've heard from folks that we need to go further beyond our understanding of what the educational need is to be able to have more input from our members. So what we're doing is we're putting together a conference needs assessment task force, and we're going to be meeting probably the second week in January to determine and to do a very, very thorough needs assessment to determine what we want those topics to be. We heard some very passionate commentary on the way that we have been partnering with the state in various sessions. And again, going beyond our understanding of what that need is, I want to be able to put out there that we are going to include additional voices of our membership. So Corky is going to be sending out that solicitation, and I am thinking it's, just based on time, that is probably a 2 to 3 hour effort, and you're not going to be on a committee. You're not going to be signed up for anything lengthy. We essentially want to hear your voice. That's the bottom line of how to formulate our spring conference. So the second piece of that is that by virtue of meeting throughout the state at our town hall meetings, we've been doing our best to engage the local folks, for example, on the western slope in Grand Junction, down south in Colorado Springs and Pueblo, and up north. We need to be able to reestablish our footing with those folks in rural areas that have these exact same concerns but don't have the resources of being located in the Denver metro area. So that's another thing that we're going to be working on in 2018. Nicole, do you have any comments about that?
I don't. I think that what you said is exactly on target with all the discussions that we have had in all of our collaborative meetings with both current members and pending members. And I look forward to getting some of the task forces moving forward so that we can start to put some of our conversations into action.
Yeah, that's excellent, and that's the point. We want to be able to put our conversations and create action items and be able to organize the way that we have heard our members who are willing to participate and have the opportunity, because there are a lot of people out there that have a lot of the diversity of experience in a lot of different areas that we represent. So one of the other things that we're going to be focusing on in 2018 is developing and establishing a board, a Colorado Assisted Living board that has some, and I use the word diversity, not in terms of dividing, but in terms of different specialties. And so we're going to be working on those so that we do have representation of different voices. And for example, we've proposed that that we are able to recruit a senior care attorney or senior elder law attorney, perhaps somebody from the fire department, somebody who has previously been employed by the state. But that's one of our goals in 2018, to recruit and set into place a very strong and diverse board that, again, allows us to go beyond our understanding of what we feel like the need is. So I think that's it. Peter, do we have any questions?
Well, Bill, before we get into those questions, let me touch on some of the big dates that are coming up in 2018 so that people can go ahead and get these down and be aware of them. First of all, everyone, the Colorado legislative session starts on January 10th and is going to run for 120 days until May 7th. And so your Government Affairs Committee will be monitoring the legislative session and acting on those things that may involve us, affect us, both pro and con. So that will start on January 10th. For all of our members out there, please take this date down, January 16th. That is going to be the CALA legislative reception, which is going to be held at the Colorado Automobile Dealers Association building, and that's located at 290 East Spear Boulevard, and that's going to run from 5:30 to 8:30. And so this will be an opportunity for everyone to visit with legislators, talk about unique issues affecting the assisted living community. So that's huge. Everyone should have already received a postcard asking them to go ahead and save the date. On January 5th, there will be 2 town hall meetings. You've touched on one already, which is in Westminster at Covenant Village, 9153 Yarrow Street in Westminster. And then there's another one being held in Greeley at Ames College at 5401 20th Street, Greeley. And so that will be another town hall meeting sponsored by CDPHE. Immediately following that, over at the old Chicago restaurant, CALA is holding a membership meeting, and we would encourage everybody that's in attendance at that Greeley meeting to attend and come by and visit with us. It's going to be at the old Chicago. The address for that is 2349 West 29th Street in Greeley. And so that'll be an opportunity to learn more about what CALA is doing, what the plans are that Bill has outlined. So that's another opportunity there for people to go ahead and get involved with the association. And last but certainly not least, the CALA Spring Conference will be here in Denver, and it'll be on April 26th and 27th. So you want to put that down in your calendar and put it in your phone so that you've got that, and be watching for more information that will be coming on that particular conference. We're excited about this one because it is going to be the one that is going to go ahead and really kick off what the new rules and regs are going to be all about. We also will be sending out a calendar of our lunch and learn meetings on various topics. So be on the lookout for those. Those will be coming out. We'll be emailing those out to everybody. So that's the start of the 2018 year, and we've got a lot going on. It's going to be fun.
Thanks, Corky. I also, just as a footnote to that, we we received feedback that our term brain food for our continuing education, or for our lunch and learns, was a little bit of a confusing term. So that's what Corky is talking about in terms of our lunch and learns. And those are essentially going to be the CALA education series that we are going to continue to produce through the year. Peter, I wanted to also say, I'm sorry, about the legislative session. With the changes in these new regs, there are some initiatives that we are working on that could have downstream effects and could actually become a bill that the Colorado Assisted Living Association would develop. And so the whole purpose of the legislative reception is so that we can meet those legislators, so that when they hear the term Colorado Assisted Living Association, they know who we are and they know what we represent. And it's a great way to establish rapport with some of these legislators. So I'd like to encourage everybody to attend. And again, from a grassroots standpoint, please let your friends, let people you associate with, let them know about the reception, and please invite them, because the more people we have there, the greater impact we're going to have on these folks. So, okay, Peter, do you have any questions for us?
We have no questions at this time.
Okay, very good. All right, so I guess that's it. Nicole, do you have any closing comments?
I do not. Thank you.